We have a special show today, and it's all about CBDCs. Now, let me introduce first. So, we have Scott Herman, who's been learning cryptographic from NSA, and he's been studying about cryptocurrencies. He's been working on it, and he's the man that you go to for any kind of educational understanding. And we have Brandon, who's been working on CBDCs. He's got a presentation to give us all and tell us about the CBDCs. And I welcome you both onto the show, and I thank you all for being on the show.
Appreciate you, Gunpree, for having me.
So before we start this, let me quickly introduce our today's show. So the use of physical cash is declining. We are witnessing a growing appetite for digital alternative, driven not only by private sector innovation but also an increasingly recognition from the central governments. Now, the role to be played by the public digital money. Now, this is known as CBDCs in the economy for the future, as both public and private sector research and explore continue to develop into the design principle and attributes of these new forms of digital currency. Now, do we call this currency? Do we call this money? Everything on today's show, and we'll discuss how the regulations are coming about. We'll discuss how CBDC is coming about, because we have Elon Musk, we have Rishi Sunak. I mean, we have social media being taken over by a person who's absolutely bullish on crypto. And we have a country being taken over, the seventh biggest country to be taken over by a person, again, who's bullish on crypto. And we'll talk about CBDCs and all on the regulations on this show. So I thank you all for joining us, and let's get started. So what are your thoughts on CBDCs? And I know Brandon has a presentation to give us. So should we start with the presentation before and then move on to the discussion?
Yeah,
Let's go
I think
ahead with
so.
that.
Yeah.
Okay. So Brandon, I've done the screen share. You can actually start with your presentation, and then we'll discuss all about the CBDCs.
All right. How am I looking on you guys in?
It's all perfect.
Perfect.
Yep.
All right. CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, and the future upgrade of money and payment systems. This is just a quick overview or a quick run through on a project that I did for the Kings of DeFi, going over the future of money. And I'm going to start off my slide with blockchain and DLT, distributed ledger technology, which is a term seldom used when we're talking about cryptocurrency. But here just shows that we have various DLTs or distributed ledger technologies. The one most well known is blockchain. We have DAG, distributed ledger technologies. We have Hashgraph, which is most popularly known for Hedera Hashgraph. We have Holochain, and we also have Radix. I have a small just photo over here showing the different currencies that's under each distributed ledger technology. And I will further get into this later into my presentation. But just a quick run through on the future of money and Bitcoin. The blockchain is what we most know. In 2009, Satoshi Nakamoto introduced a peer-to-peer electronic cash payment system that allowed the movement of money with no central third parties. We quickly had the evolution of cryptocurrency and blockchain, especially with Ethereum coming into play, which allowed for programmable features of the blockchain that allow smart contract capabilities. We then saw NFTs. We quickly saw the growth of decentralized finance. We had things like DAOs, CeFi, supply chains, and the rise of stablecoins. Sorry about that. From there, we had the what I call the great tipping point. We had Facebook formed with major corporations to introduce a private coin called Libra. We will see later in the presentation that countries and governments were actually ahead in the idea of retail currency, but the allegiance assembled between these corporations with the user base of Facebook not only would get in front of government CBDCs, but Facebook would have literally became the largest bank in the world overnight. This quickly shook governments and they acted fast. Once this was introduced, we quickly saw the bull run of 2020. And another tipping point that I like to introduce is what I call the death of the petrodollar. With the Russia and Ukraine war now going on, we all know that America led as the financial superpower only through the weaponization of its currency. The SWIFT system and the Bretton Woods Agreement, or should I say the failure of the Bretton Woods Agreement. Now we have the BRICS nations, which you might know about, Gunpreet, which is Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, nations wanting to create an alternative global economic order. For now, it's only the forming of these 5 countries, but negotiations are still in play to pull American allies away from the Western standard in an attempt to further expand their initiative. The break in the dollar has begun as we saw China start purchasing Russian oil with the yuan. These nations are also looking to de-dollarize their economies by no longer paying for imports and exports in US dollars. The BRICS nations are currently looking to form a global reserve currency backed by a basket of the country's currencies and even rumors of possibly backing by gold. But like I say, that's just a rumor. And also we're hearing of Saudi Arabia possibly joining BRICS nations as well. Now to go right into what are CBDCs. CBDCs are centralized bank digital currencies. They're defined by the Federal Reserve as a digital liability or digital debt widely available for use to the general public. CBDCs are a digital representation of a country's existing fiat money and would be best compared as a centralized stablecoin. It would be paired one-to-one with the country's currency. CBDCs can be programmable and will be used as legal tender with its jurisdiction. And from some recent research, I've recently found out that the digital rupee has smart contract capabilities built in. So that's just a perfect example of it being programmable. Benefits and risk of CBDCs. We'll start with the benefits. We will see real-time gross payments, or another term you will hear is instant settlement. Instant settlement will also have financial inclusion, which will help a lot of people that is unbanked give them access to banking services. We will see growth in innovation, once again, programmability, and we will also see reductions in illicit transactions and currency costs. We do have a few risks. I know India is, with the rollout of their CBDCs, a major concern is that they do not want to disrupt commercial banking. Another risk of CBDCs is that it's centralized. Our privacy and they will have tons of access to our personal data. We could have restrictions or limitations of payment, and it could be traceable. This is just a quick chart comparing the CBDCs to crypto. Of course, crypto is on blockchain. It will be open and permissionless. With CBDCs, it would be a closed ecosystem, or what we would like to call permission. The structure of CBDCs would be centralized and crypto is decentralized. Anonymity, CBDCs would be linked to an account with personal information, while crypto is somewhat anonymous. The usage of CBDCs could be restricted to just payments, where crypto is payments and utility. Now here we have different types of CBDCs. Um, for starters, we have the retail general purpose CBDC, and this will be for public use. Retail CBDCs would primarily be utilized by individuals. People could use them essentially as digital cash with the comfort of knowing that the currency is backed and issued by the country's central bank. The rupee will be a non-interest bearing token based CBDC issued directly by the Reserve Bank of India. And currently, we have our second CBDC, which is the wholesale CBDC, which is the pilot that the Reserve Bank of India is now in the works. The wholesale CBDCs would primarily be utilized by payment service providers and financial institutions to speed up background processing and transactions. The use of CBDCs would allow banks to make payments in a quicker and more automated manner. Cross-border transactions may become faster and more reliable. Wholesale CBDCs can be used as a reserve for large banks. Now, this is the money flower, and I'm noticing that a lot of the CBDC pilots are structuring their CBDCs around the money flower, which is basically the four components of digital money. Here you see we have widely accessible, digital, central bank issued, and token based. From here, from what I'm seeing, as you can see, we have cash here, which is widely accessible. It is centrally bank issued, but it's not in the digital realm. With the CBDCs, here we're looking more at, if we're going off the piloting of the wholesale CBDCs, we fall right here in where it would be token based, as spoke on before. It is centralized. It is digital, but as for now, with the piloting, you can see that it's not widely accessible. I could go more into details, but I believe this would be a pretty long breakdown on this one. So I just wanted to show the money flower. And here we have the CBDC scenarios. And we have three different types of scenarios. We have the indirect CBDCs, with the central banks, and you have a commercial bank playing the middleman of issuance between merchants and the retail consumer. Here we have the direct CBDC or central bank. This is more of the Chinese approach, where it's directly from the central bank straight to the merchant and retail consumers. And here we have a hybrid CBDC central bank, which I kind of want to get you guys input on this. I believe this is more of what we're seeing kind of in the States, where you have a payment service provider, which I believe it just to be an exchange, Coinbase, Uphold, Binance possibly, and where we have the USDC stablecoin, and we're able to access it for retail and as for merchants. Now here shows just a quick map out of where all the CBDCs are being launched. And as you can see, it's a wide range of different countries getting into the CBDC race. For this, I will just keep it to the Reserve Bank of India CBDC piloting. Of course, we have the digital dollar project being worked on. Of course, we know of the People's Bank of China, but we have many projects in the works. Now, the question that interests me with the CBDCs is, could it be possible that we could return to sound money with the tokenization and backing of cryptocurrency by real world assets? We could have asset-backed cryptocurrencies linked to crypto coins that have real economic value. The blockchain makes it perfect for asset management. Asset-backed crypto or CBDCs would be very enticing for the average consumer by possibly linking it to real world commodities such as gold, silver, or oil. And just a the final one, it would ensure stability and less volatility in currencies across the world. Quick breakdown on the ISO 2022 banking standard. It's just a single standard approach to be used by all financial standard initiatives. It will enable communication and interoperability between financial institutions, their market infrastructures, and their end user communities. All banks are to be ISO 222 compliant by 2025. This slide here shows basically different distributed ledger technologies that I'm not seeing a lot of people speak on, but I put it in my presentation just to highlight on it. We have different protocols such as the Interledger Protocol, which was actually introduced by Ripple to provide the functions necessary for payments from source to a destination over an interconnected system of ledgers. With the Interledger Protocol, you can pay with any asset in real time, the future of not just moving money, but actually moving value across ledgers. We also have Overledger, which is introduced by Quant, which is an operating system that lets you connect and interoperate with any legacy network and almost every current and future blockchain with no overhead. Quant is actually the native token for the Overledger network. And I'm familiar with Hyperledger. I know you guys probably are as well. Hyperledger is a global enterprise blockchain project that offers the necessary framework, standards, guidelines, and tools to build open source blockchains and related applications for use across various industries. Now here I just run down a quick ISO 222 compliant coins list. For now, there are officially 7 cryptocurrencies that are recognized as ISO 222 compliant. Like I just spoke on, we have Quant, which basically introduces traditional legacy systems, which ties them into blockchain networks. We have Ripple or XRP. We have Stellar. We have Federa. We have IOTA. We have the XDC network, and one that is making a really big run right now would say Algorand. And I'm going to wrap this one up here with this final one. This is actually the Interledger protocol family in ISO 222. Now here, I like to explain it as if decentralization is foundational to banking, then this is a glimpse of what it would actually look like. As of now, all protocols listed are ISO 222, which you can see, which is highlighted in pink with IOTA, Ripple, Zenfin, Stellar, and Algorand. And you also can see Circle at the bottom linked in with USDC and Algorand. Now this is, and all of these are carbon neutral. This is a combination of distributed ledger technologies, different distributed ledger technologies, and existing infrastructure for moving value. This ecosystem shows centralized entities connected to each other with decentralized rails. These entities can all communicate with each other, with some having different DLT use cases. And Gunpreet, that's basically wrap up on my CBDC project. And I would definitely love to hear some of you guys' questions on anything that I ran through.
So firstly, I want to say that it's a really nice presentation, and it looks lovely. And so my question to we'll get Scott's view on it, but so CBDCs are something that I do think that is coming in. Now, how secure would they be? And see, if the governments launch it, how would they control the kind of, how to print those CBDCs, or how to make those CBDCs, or how many CBDCs? How are they going to control it? One thing is that. The other thing is privacy, because tomorrow CBDCs come in, all the spending, everything, the entire data would be collected. So how would they regulate in a way that the privacy is taken into concern? And the third thing would be that what do you think would happen to something like USDT if CBDCs come in? And would these private CBDCs be also as valuable, or what would happen then? So I would also like to get Scott's view on it.
Sure. Well, it's complicated, and as you can see by the graph on the screen, I mean, it is, and there's many different avenues and options that are given, and that's why it's taken time for the governments to come out with this, and the ones that have had their in their system for most of them for quite a few years. And the US is way behind in this because of all of the enormous interactions that can occur. And looking at it from the standpoint of what you just said with the security, and looking at it as from a banking standpoint, that it's monumental in having a central bank, and what is going to be their actions or their lack of actions. Are they going to be involved with loans, or are they going to keep the banks as they are and have them interact with that, and they're just going to be the central bank? But then you also have, as we see in the crypto community, the hacking that goes on. Well, if that occurred with the central bank, that would be, quite significant, and tying up and involving, millions of people. So it's happening. It is going to happen. It's just a matter of when. And many countries are coming out with it and very far along in their progression. India being a significant portion of the state of the art and the cutting edge of it. And so that's a brief little take on what I have to say.
I mean, so what is your take on, let's say, regulations? Now, do you think that regulations are good, and are they going to come up? And then what's your take on we have Twitter being taken over by Elon Musk, and we have Rishi Sunak, who's actually bullish on blockchain in general being, leading a country. What is your take on that? We'll have Scott and Brandon, both of you, the views on it.
Go ahead, Brandon.
Well, of course, with Elon Musk taking over Twitter, and one thing I'm not hearing is that, Binance is actually in place with kind of backing Elon Musk up with that. So that's extra bullish.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they just put in $500 million.
Yeah.
See, that's major. So now you have one of the biggest social media platforms possibly turning into a cryptocurrency hub. And with a lot of us communicating through Twitter, I can see maybe payments being introduced with various cryptocurrencies through Twitter. As far as regulations goes, to see that just on my studies of, the Reserve Bank of India and you guys, your pilot on the wholesale, I'm seeing that they really want to make sure that the banks, the clearinghouses, matter of fact, I've heard something that you guys did 48 trades within the past 24 hours with government bonds. So they really want to make sure that the big money is able to move around safe and sound, and make sure that everything is clear with that before they kind of introduce or kind of point their attention towards the retail CBDCs. So I feel like the regulations is kind of being held up because there's so many so many, as far as currencies, um, but different markets in play as well, from securities to bonds to banks. So I feel like uh, with the U.S. being kind of the quote unquote the financial mecca of the world, this might be a slow process.
Yeah, because see, my point is very simple that whatever any country does, it does not really matter as much as US does it. Because once US takes a step, the entire, I mean, a lot of the countries in the world, they actually follow that step.
Correct.
And right now, I mean, with Twitter being taken over, and you have some bullishness. I mean, bullish news about UK PM being also very bullish on the crypto front. So I think the regulations are definitely coming in. But now the point is, how do they structure it is probably the main thing that will really depend on so many factors. Because as Scott said, or as we all know that with CBDCs, with all of these things, look, with digital currency, you have to realize that the crime will also increase. There's no denying to that fact. But the point is that the crime is there in every part of the world, in everything. I don't think there's any aspect that, it's like saying, let's ban internet because there was porn on internet. So, I mean, so you can't really deny to the technology. I mean, look what's happening in Dubai. I mean, if we're talking about regulations here, I think Dubai is actually taking over the entire world, and it's actually sucking all the people from the world because of its regulations. And I mean, how often do we see everyone from the world, be it West, be it East, be it South, settling in Dubai? And Dubai is not a big country. Dubai is probably the smallest of one of the smallest that we would know in terms of technology. But what they've done is they've really attracted well, and they've given the comfort to the people by saying, look, we are here to help you. So they're giving this kind of a comfort more than anything else. So these regulations, how and how soon do you think that these regulations would come in? And what is your take on how US would go about it?
Well, my take on it is the U.S. is. I just read an article that from the Atlantic Council, and it was giving where different countries are: Russia, Singapore, Bahamas, China, and how they're advancing, and the CBDCs, and the U.S. is just lagging so far behind. And that seems to be the case, as far as their interaction with stablecoins, with the SEC, with the FOMC, the U.S. Treasury. It's just throughout the feds just are not grabbing a hold of this and moving forward at a pace of the rest of the world. There's greater than 90% gross domestic product countries are now looking into CBDCs. So it's worldwide, it's huge. And we also have to remember that this is being taken from a decentralized environment and making it centralized. And that's significant. It's almost like the U.S. is saying, well, crypto is has all these bad actors, et cetera, but yet we're going to adopt their blockchain and move forward with that. So you're talking out of both sides of their mouth. And I feel strongly like what the question is we definitely need regulation, and we need somebody to stand up and say, hey, this is this, and we're going to move forward, or it's going to go on without us. And along those same lines, I also want to say that as far as the regulations, as far as the security, as far as your privacy, and anonymity goes, that we in this community that are listening to this and doing the work are the ones who need to bring our voices and make them heard and help these countries or these people that don't understand the significance of crypto and all of the interactions and hieroglyphics, I'll call it, that are contained within crypto. So I'm hoping that we move forward, but only with the right tools put in place by having crypto actors be involved in the decisions.
So I have someone asking a question. With CBDCs being launched, how would these affect the stablecoin and crypto market in general?
Go ahead, Brandon.
So
I believe that's a great question. From the chart that I showed, like I say, in some way I feel that USDC is already its own CBDC in some ways. And as far as the like I say, with different countries, I believe that once you guys, especially like India, once you guys actually introduce the retail side of it, when I was speaking of it possibly being backed by some type of asset or some type of commodity, that could actually change the game when they say, you know, moving value across the blockchain. For now, like I say, it's still kind of, the lines are still kind of blurred.
yeah.
So it's kind of, it's kind of hard for me to make a full.
So
Go ahead.
So I personally feel, look, launching the CBDCs would definitely mean launching some regulations as well. They can't just launch CBDCs. And I think eventually that those regulations would be good in a long run. But for the short run, I don't know how it's going to be. The second thing that I really want to ask you guys here as well is, and even from your presentation, I just wanted to highlight that, India and China have been buying gold a lot. And they've actually been buying in huge quantity. And what they've been doing is disposing of US dollar. Now, what is your take on, so the entire crypto fight has been that, US dollar is something that breaks everything. It's basically about breaking the US dollar, or basically taking out US dollar out of the trade definition. So what is your take on the US dollar being the forefront, or do you think that this is the end of an era for US dollar? Of course, I do believe that it's not going to be like you get up tomorrow morning and US dollar is all gone. I mean, those things, everything takes time, and this is not something that, I don't believe, I could be wrong, but I don't believe that it could happen in a day or two, where the entire world is built into US dollar and suddenly now, it would. But do you think the process has already started?
I'd like to answer that. How much time do I have?
No, you have time. Go ahead. Scott.
I'm kidding.
Don't wait.
Yeah, it's interesting looking at it from a macro standpoint. There has been a lot of interest and a lot of discussion in the news and in the media about gold and gold buying. Just came out actually today or yesterday, in quarter three, which is just concluding and being reported on, was the largest increase of central banks buying gold. Yeah. There was 400 tons of gold bought by central banks. It was an increase of 28% from the norm. So yeah, read between the lines. It's in my opinion, it's happening. With Saudi talking about going into the BRICS, that's the petrodollar gone.
Yeah.
And so Russia, China, um, along with the Saudis, obviously, and the rest of the BRICS, are all, in my opinion, looking at having a gold backed new central currency. Uh, it's just, I think it's inevitable that the world is sick and tired of the US just printing money, printing
Absolutely.
money. And you know, they're like saying enough is enough, with the divisiveness in the world, and the US, quote unquote, breaking ties with China and with Russia compared to how it has been in the past. That's what's happening. And people are in the world are saying enough is enough, and that we need to have a backing of currency. It can't just be not having a value. It has to have a value. And so
Yeah.
that's my
And
soapbox. And
and with see some I do agree with you that the currency has to be value, and I also believe CBDCs or all these cryptos are the it's so much easier to transfer it, and and it's faster, and that is taking a leaf out of the Ukraine and Russia war. Now, tomorrow you have to transfer your money. You can't run away. You can't run with, cash in your bag, or, the banks had actually stopped working, and people couldn't take their money out, and, the war was there. So I also believe that these wars would also increase the acceptability of all these cryptocurrencies and regulations. And I would reiterate that I personally think it's inevitable. It's just the way how the regulations would come in. Every country would get in a different way of regulating their own currency. But I think, like Dubai is saying, you know what, we're all about blockchain, we're all about crypto, we're all about this, so you're welcome. Certain countries are still thinking about it. They're saying, you know what, the crime would increase, we would have drugs, we would have, war, I mean, weapons, we would have everything, so we're going to take this step. But eventually, I personally think that it's inevitable that these regulations have to come up. And talking about the war, also, do you think that this war will actually also help to speed in in killing the US dollar?
Definitely, you're seeing it now. Everybody's kind of breaking ties one by one, starting with Russia. Um, you can see clear tension with us and China, possibly with the China and Taiwan. That's a
Yeah.
whole nother subject in itself. So you kind of see from the tension and the wars that the strings are slowly being broken. And to Scott's point, and as far as the currencies being backed by assets, this is the reason we're in what we're in now, because there's no value behind the US dollar. So they're able to kind of keep kind of have one up on other countries. So I definitely can see cryptocurrencies being backed by some real world assets in the future.
Yeah, because I think the gold is probably the best way to back any currency, and the way they've printed money is something that is why we've actually reached this stage in the world today, because everyone knows that the money has been printed, and it has no value because it's not backed by anything. Now, saying that, do you think that after CBDCs come in, uh, how would the process would really look like? And do you think that people would be scared of their privacy still? Because see, the governments would know where you are spending onto, and the governments would have an exact data of what you're doing. So the transactions would be recorded on the blockchain. So what is your take on that? That how is the retail going to take that?
yeah, I think that's relates to what I was saying before, is to have you know people that are in the crypto community have a voice in how this comes about and is implemented. Certainly, there are concerns and viable concerns on that issue, and the in my opinion, it's going to have a limited use factor, meaning that there's still going to be a paper dollar. There's still going to be cryptocurrency. The U.S. cannot put this out there and just take over all of the banking functions. There's still going to be that requirement of the bank next door for some transactions, because the crypto, or I should say DeFi, is going to take, even though it's going at an enormous pace, is going to take years to unfold. And so it's going to be a transition. For example, I went to a couple stores just last week with my daughter, and on two of them, there was signs on the outside, and these were big name brand chain stores, saying there's a shortage of change. Please use your currency accordingly. Meaning, that's just the government forcing the hand and saying we're going digital.
It's a very valid point.
Yeah. So go ahead, Brandon. I just wanted to. Sorry, I just wanted to. Let me just finish. I didn't say anything about the CBDCs and the USDCs. Again, I think they're going to have their own niche, their own use case. The stable coins are utilized in trading and farming in those respects as far as crypto goes, and those are needed in that community in order for that to function. You need to have something versus something with a fiat-backed monetary asset. So that's going to stay that way, and that's not going to be replaced by a central bank CBDC. They're going to have their own use cases.
Yeah, makes sense. I would say, based on time, as the more time goes by, the more digitized that we get, the more you'll start to see the phasing out of the currency. But like Scott says, it's hard to see the physical dollar phasing out anytime soon.
But I also agree with Scott there. Brandon, if you actually see around the world, I see people are actually pushing you to use less of the cash money or change. People are saying, we don't have money. And in UK, I was actually reading, and it's funny, they say we don't have people to count the change. And so, whatever reasons are there, everyone is giving. But it eventually seems that the governments are pulling their hands onto it. And it's happening everywhere in the world. So I personally think internally they all are going digital.
Yeah, Sweden is going to be totally cashless in 2023.
Wow.
Totally cashless, yeah.
Wow.
And cash, I just had an article here. Cash-based payments are used less than 5% of the time in Sweden, Denmark, the UK, and Singapore, Finland, New Zealand, Switzerland, Hong Kong, and Netherlands. So, yeah, it's definitely, we're definitely going digital, and that's why I say and why I feel so passionately about this DeFi space and Web3 and crypto is start learning it, people. it's where we're going, and it's happening now, and the sooner the better.
No, absolutely. See, slowly, gradually, you'll also see all these MasterCards, Visas entering the space. They're just, some countries they've already actually entered. Some they're still waiting for the regulations to come in. I think the entire spending power would get onto digitalization. And I think slowly, gradually, we all see that happening. Now, I think the biggest question over here would be how the BRICS comes about, uh, how the US dollar is, because look, as you said, Scott and Brandon, that I don't think US dollar it's here still to stay. It's like saying gold was a currency at one point of time, and it's still there, right? But the value or the like what happens today with the US is they can easily put regulations on any country. They can come out with and they state, and if they state that we stop trading with this country, and suddenly you see the currencies crashing down of that country. Do you think that the world is gonna become more decentralized with all of these things?
Go ahead, Brandon.
I definitely believe so. We're going that way now. That's what it feels like. We're basically doing now. Everybody's kind of bringing it home, bringing everything in home to say, um, we run off our own currency. We back it by our resources, and that's the feel that I'm getting as of now.
Yeah, and what's your view on this, Scott? That do you think that so it's funny, right? We're fighting for a decentralized thing in a centralized manner. I mean, it's somewhere contradicting to each other in some ways or the other. And I think the entire process here would be how do they balance decentralization and centralization, isn't it, Scott?
Yeah, let's stand up for ourselves, and that's the whole idea of decentralized, is to have your freedom, your privacy, your anonymity, and maintain that moving forward, and especially as we move into Web3. That's why I love
Yeah.
this space, because the centralization and what happens in those types of societies um, is what history makes, and I would rather be looking into the future than in the past.
Yeah, and I think look, with CBDCs and all of these coming in, I think also it's going to benefit a lot of business, isn't it? Do you think that there would be a business growth? Like, do you think Amazons or all of these things would also get onto CBDCs and take the benefit of it?
I think it's too early to say right now. Um, it depends on how it comes out, but along those same lines, you can see what's happening with companies coming into the DeFi world, right and left, and that's where the future lies, and all of these big firms are seeing that and coming into it, and that's why we were just talking about Elon Musk talking
Yeah.
about money and coming into it, and certainly, yeah, that's where companies need to be residing and looking into and forward to, preparing for that. There was just a big announcement from Visa last week, how they're moving forward into the DeFi space, and that everything as far as money is moving forward into that, but also that the monetary and financial aspects are just the beginning of the blockchain technology and the smart contracts, etc. So that's why I feel so strongly about this, is it's not just about money.
Yeah.
It's that this is just the beginning.
Absolutely. See, and I also believe So this is one question that I always have. Now, for example, let's say all the currencies have been devaluating against the US dollar. Now, over the years, I mean, the main reason for the crypto or the blockchain was also so that there is no like Bitcoin was because there can't be more Bitcoin printed, or it can only be certain amount. There are only few millions that can be actually made, and that's about it. Now with CBDCs, how would the currency or people would react on the currency devaluation, and do you think people are still going to step onto CBDCs, or is it only going to be to buy Bitcoin or Ethereum and just convert that and be an ease of transaction more than a store of value?
Good question. I gotta love that one. Um, you know, I am not gonna go that far at this point um, into what the feds are gonna do, because they have been so wishy-washy about what they're doing. It's more about what they're not doing, and to try to look into the future as far as what they're gonna do. I can't go there.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on it, Brandon? What do you think?
I hate to keep running over the same one, but that's why I feel I'm so big on the CBDCs having to be backed by an asset,
Yeah.
because a CBDC with an unlimited amount, we're right back to square one. We have just a
100%.
digital note with no value.
I totally agree there, and that's exactly what I think. That's exactly why the world is fighting for it, because US, India, few countries that I think still hold a certain value, but there are so many countries in the world in which their currencies actually hold no value, and over the years they've just gone down in terms of value because the money has been printed and been used. So I think with CBDCs also, I think, do you think that it would be easier for people to uh, to see, and do you think it's going to stop corruption? It's going to stop the leakage of money?
Never. Never.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, and I also want to speak to this too, because there's a big elephant in the room um, that hasn't been discussed yet, and that is the crypto naysayers saying that crypto has no value.
Yeah,
What is it backed by? And we keep talking about the dollar not backed by anything, or whatever the country's fiat is. Who has anything backed by a value? It's all what we perceive the value to be.
absolutely.
So that said, that comes full circle back to what we were talking about gold, and having something that is also valued, backing the asset. Um, but what is gold? It's a value.
Yeah.
So, we can go round and round and go in circles. Here, let's go really far out there. The U.S. just sent I'm sorry, a spaceship. I'm going to say, because I'm at a loss for the term, into an asteroid, right? To deflect the asteroid, or see what was going to happen with it. And Musk is looking to go to Mars or to the moon or both. What happens if we bring an asteroid in and they start mining that? What's going to happen to the economy when an asteroid begins to get mined? So we could go on and on. We could go on and on.
No, absolutely, absolutely. I think that is true. It's like a never-ending. So, but the main point over here is I think what CBDCs would do actually would make it easier for people like us to trade and for people like us to actually believe in a currency, so that there is a certain, because I personally believe that with CBDCs coming in, people are still gonna, be uh, being, use that as an ease of transaction and still buy into, because the entire point of centralized CBDCs or the crypto space is decentralization, and CBDC somewhere becomes centralized. Now it only depends upon, I think, government to government how they are acting on it. If, because they're using the CBDCs and they are doing some development, or people need to believe again. It comes like a full circle again. Now we're on a digital currency. Now we're again trying to understand or believe that will this currency be good for us or will it be bad for us, or it would, the governments would control this currency, or government would actually use this for the development of the people. So I think that again is coming an entire circle. But my question to you is, do you think that everyone will get onto CBDCs, or the currencies will again still exist? And this is, if this is going to take time, how much time do you think, or how long would this process be actually? I mean, it's a tough question because you don't know how long this process could be. But just the way the technology is going, look, 1990s, nobody used internet. And within 20 years, I think we have been literally the entire world on the internet. So within 20 years, the last technology took over. Now, how fast would this technology take over?
I I think it's going to take years. And will everybody go, join and be a proponent of it? No way. There's it like I just read an article yesterday, I believe it was, that China, even though they have been one of on the forefront of CBDCs, are still saying that they have pilot programs out there that they're not going to get the results for 5 years before it becomes, the official version of their CBDCs. Right. So this is China that everybody's talking about with the digital yuan and et cetera. And the governor of the central bank is the one who said this in China. And he said it's going to be like 5 years. It's again, it depends on how it comes out, how it comes across to the people and that are in the countries, that because everybody's going to have their own take on it. What are they going to allow, etc. But a big pro factor or positive aspect of this is that we can free up the world to intercommunicate monetarily, which has sorely been lacking and costing countries a lot of extra time and money by interacting the way that we do monetarily. So this is I think a big boom internationally for us. And again, how it comes across to you and me or to the general public, I think some people are going to be all on board. Some people are going to, you're always going to have the left and the right. But as a general use case, if the government starts sending you your tax rebate, or you have to send in your tax money through the CBDC, that it's going to force your hand. And I would bet $1. That was funny. That's what they're going to do. That's how it's going to come across. They're going to say, okay, this is central bank. This is what we do. And this is going to save the taxpayers all of this money by doing it this way. And speaking of taxpayers, I won't go on a rant, but as far as the government getting their hands into the DeFi and decentralized world goes, I think they've choked us so much and so far that they see all this money out there and they have to get their hands on it. They have to get their fingers into it because they see the monetary value going away from them and they can't get any more out of us. So they're going after another avenue in order to fill their coffers. So that's just my soapbox again.
Yeah, because I also think that blockchain is one thing, technology that will soon take over the world. Because look, there's no other kind of a where there's no duplicacy. There's so much more to blockchain, right? For so many people right now, blockchain is just Bitcoin, and Bitcoin is just crypto, and crypto is just blockchain kind of a thing. People are still in that circle, but people do not realize the underlying technology behind it, which also I don't think people are far off from adopting it, because it will help a lot of companies also to grow in future. So I personally think that I was actually reading an article which said actually 2030 all your airline tickets would be on blockchain, because there's going to be no duplicacy. There's not, all your entertainment systems, your concert tickets and all, there's not going to be black. And so it helps the private companies also to monetize on it. So if something is helping them to monetize, I think they will also jump onto it as soon as possible. So all it depends is how the government structure it. And I don't think it's I want your thoughts on, do you think that the governments would actually ban the crypto, or it's just the way they want to structure it is what we are waiting for?
I don't believe they will ban. I don't believe they will ban it. I just feel like everybody's trying to get in position and make sure, like you were saying earlier about India, everybody's just trying to, the higher ups are trying to make sure that, their plate is set first before they get retail into it. But I don't believe that they can ban cryptocurrency in a sense.
What's your view on it, Scott?
Oh, no way. The ship's already sailed. It's gone so far that the US is looking at this thing and going, the feds are going, holy cow, this ship's already sailed, and we don't have, the regulations put in place. And it's so far out there, meaning it's so far advanced and moving along, and there's so many trillions of dollars involved, that the politicians don't want to step on their own foot.
Absolutely.
And that's the bottom line. It's nobody's saying anything because they want to be reelected.
100%. I totally agree, and it's becoming a very strong community. So
yeah,
and the good part is that this community is actually, as you said, they are raising their voice. Everyone is trying to raise voice in their own kind of setup that they have. I think everyone is trying to get out and tell the governments that, look, this is what we want and this is how it should be done. And governments, initially they tried, it's as they say, initially they tried to ignore it, and then they tried to ban it. Then now I don't think that that it might just be countries like China, which has banned crypto for zillions of times. They then go ahead, they ban. I mean, what they keep doing is something that is unknown to me, but I guess it's unknown to anyone what they do. But other than that, the other countries, I don't think that they're really on the system of banning it. It's about how to regulate it so that they could have, probably it could benefit everyone in a way.
Yeah, that just makes me think that another article I just read was that Coinbase just wrote I don't know the exact legal term for it. It's a 2-word legal term, but it's basically it's a letter that is on the side of Ripple, or promoting Ripple in the lawsuit with the SEC right now. and Coinbase was the first exchange that dropped XRP or canceled them, their
Right.
transactions from occurring, and now they're joining with Ripple on this lawsuit with Ripple, and I think that says a lot.
Yeah.
You know, that says how united our community is, and that a company as strong and as large as Coinbase is joining efforts with Ripple. So I thought that's a good analogy with what you were just saying.
And I think XRP's case would be it's going to be very interesting because that really shows you the way the governments are looking at it. So I think everyone is kind of waiting for the XRP to, really understand what happens with the XRP at the end of the day. And I think that's where because I've seen a lot of people talking about the regulations in terms of, in relation to XRP actually, because it's practically happening, right? They're actually practically trying to fight those regulations.
Oh yeah, I'll be very brief on this, but I could go on forever. But what I feel is happening, or what I see is happening, is all these little lawsuits that are putting out there. Therefore, the feds are putting it into the hands of the judicial system and the lawsuits, and having the regulations put on by law, instead of them having to step on their own foot to come out and say, this is how it should be. They're putting it into the hands of the lawsuits. And that's why you see this with Ripple. And there's also a lawsuit against Coinbase, and all these other smaller ones. And that's, what I feel, in my humble opinion, is what they're doing is they're not saying how it's going to come across or how they're going to regulate it. They're putting it into the hands of the judicial system.
No, absolutely. And we're almost at the end of the show, but before, I want to say something as well. You know what happens sometimes with the governments? They come at the end, or if there is a crash in the market, that's when they enter and they tell you, you know what, we're the good ones, and we'll bring in these regulations. So sometimes these regulations come at probably the time that, you have entire market going into red, and the because it saves government from being the bad person, right? They always want to be the better ones because, as you said, it's something that they also want to get elected next year as well. So what happens is that sometimes these regulations would come at the end of when you are falling off the cliff. So, all I could say is, if you're falling off the cliff, the Bitcoin prices are going down and there's a bloodbath, stick onto it. That's when the regulations would actually start coming in. What happened with Amazon, what happened with .com bubble, we all know that there was a time where all of these things went into a crash, and then you suddenly see that, everyone lost their money, and people who held their money back into it, we know what the technology or the tech firms have done till now. Even if you're holding your Amazon share since then and it went down to, 90%, 95% at that time, and then the regulations came in, until the price that we have today is completely different. So, I'm always of the belief that the regulations will come in. Now, how they come in is something that is super interesting, because some countries, like suddenly you saw Ukraine-Russia war, and you saw immediately you saw some regulations coming in at that point of time. How funny it is, a week before you have different statements coming in, and suddenly the war is there, and that's it. You've announced certain regulations coming in. So I think that's how the governments really work sometimes, right? It is but saying that, it's in the back of the mind. It's just the timing, I think, they're looking at to press that button and then go ahead with the regulations. So your last thought on it, Scott and Brandon?
I absolutely agree with you, Gunpree. I love the bear market because it seems like all the big news and the large announcements are always made in the bear market. So I always know
Absolutely.
clearly where to invest once the bear market comes. It's like the noise calms down with
Yeah.
all the meme coins and all the hype stops and all the real deal action takes place in the bear market. So I definitely agree with you on that.
Yeah, I mean, just putting your, I mean, talk ahead with the Bitcoin pricing, just generally, I mean, comparing it with the Bitcoin pricing, I mean, just try and imagine if this news of Rishi Sunak being the PM and Elon Musk taking on the Twitter would have come in the bull market. I don't know where the Bitcoin would have gone. Honestly, I
Oh
think it would
man.
have broken all the roofs in the world. It would have actually went to Mars at that point of time. And and just imagine we were at 19,500 and the Bitcoin has just gone to 20,500, and that's literally nothing. But I mean, taking the leaf out of what you said, all the good news come in the bear market. Your thoughts
That's
on it,
absolutely.
Scott?
Oh, for sure. Excited. I mean, that's what the markets are, and with crypto, it always gets a bad tone because it's so volatile. That's what a market is.
Yeah.
It's volatility. When you have volatility, is when it happens, and so I cringe when I hear, oh, the crypto's too volatile. Well, that's the beauty of it. What goes up must come down,
Yeah.
and what goes down must go up, and that's just what's happening. And now you see all these VCs and hedge funds coming into the market, and the Schwabs and the
Yeah.
Fidelities and the JP Morgans and the VCs that's what's happening now because they're waiting through this crypto winter, and then it's going to explode, but they wanted to get in and get their ducks in a row and their organization and their people used to it, and then it's going to explode. So it's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, talking about markets being volatile, I think something people don't realize is Bitcoin has been less volatile than the stock markets in past, month or weeks. And we talk about volatility, as you said, stock markets has really gone up and they went down. But the Bitcoin price, actually, if you see, we've been really stable in terms of crypto pricing. They've been really stable since a long time. So you're right that it's a part of cycle. It's a part of how the mathematics work behind it. And now is the time all the VCs, or you'll see all of them working into the space. And I think after a year, after the halving again, this space will again explode. And hopefully we see the regulations coming in before, and some countries have already started to get into regulations. And I think this would be a good time because it's a bear market. So I don't think there's going to be a huge effect on the market because we're already at a price where people would be comfortable to even buy it in. And then, then when when the bull market comes in, then, the markets are going to explode. But saying that, it's not about Bitcoin, it's about the underlying technology we're talking about. It's about not just, Bitcoin going from 19 to 20,000. It's about what all is happening around the world under this technology. It's like the internet coming in. It's the new internet where nothing can be duplicated. It's Web3. Everyone can earn. The gaming would be on. There's so much happening in this space. So all we are doing is just waiting for the regulations, which we think nobody can say 100%, but we're quite sure that these regulations would come in. It's a matter of time. And these are my thoughts on it. And we'll get our last thoughts on it from Scott and Brandon both.
Well, the regulations are definitely coming in because what was it in March, the president, as far as the U.S. goes, just put out a 6-month more regulation to have input put in. The various branches of the government did their reporting, and now there's new timelines that are put in place. So it is moving forward. It's just moving forward slower than we would all like to see.
Absolutely.
Right.
Your last thought
Right.
on it, Brandon?
like they say, it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And you can see that everybody's already in positions making their moves. But with this being finances, this is such a major move that, of course, I would expect it to take time. So I would tell everybody, hey, just bear in there, keep your eyes on the news, but the regulations is definitely coming.
In. So with this, we have to wrap up our show, and I want to thank Scott and Brandon for being on the show, for taking out time and sharing all their experience and all their knowledge with us on CBDCs, on regulations, and talking on the crypto space in general. Thank you so much, guys, for being on the show.
Hey, thank you, Gunpreet, for having me.
Yes, thank you, Gunpreet and Brandon. It was a pleasure and an honor to get on the show with you and interact.
My pleasure, and we hope that we'll keep doing these shows more often.
Looking forward to it.
Likewise.
Take care, guys. Thank you so much, and see you until next time.
All right, thanks,
Take care, guys.
Gunpreet.
Be blessed.
Bye-bye.